साद्वैतम सावधूतम भजन संतम कृष्ण चैतन्य देवम श्री राधा कृष्ण पादां सदानुता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नित्यानंद नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणी विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणी श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे सर्वशास्त्राभ्युष सर्ववेदिक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांत रत्नाख्य सर्वलोकैक दृक्प्रद सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद्भागवत प्रभो परिध्वांतो दिदाविस्य श्रीकृष्ण परिवर्तित परमानंद पाठाय प्रेमवर्षिष्ठायते सर्वदा सर्वसेव्या श्रीकृष्णाय नमोस्तुते मदैव बन्धु मत्सङ्गी गुरु मन्महाधर्म निस्तारक मद्भाग्य मदानंद नमोस्तुते असाधु साधुतादायेन अतिवक्षताकर आनमञ्च ददाचिन्मां प्रेम्णा हृत्कण्ठयोस्फुरा ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय 1.8.28
You told that first of all, you read the commentaries from the previous acharyas.
What was that? There again.
You told that you will start the class with reading previous acharyas commentaries from 8.17 to 27.
Okay. Did it open or not? Now what? Taking forever. Seventeen to 27. Text 19, Krishna's alakshya, because he is covered by Maya. Maya Javanikachannam. This indicates, first of all, that those who are not eligible, they do not recognize him. They cannot recognize that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even when he has revealed himself, even when there is an opportunity for the Lord to reveal himself. Then another reason is by his very nature, he is beyond the knowledge produced by the senses. Even though he is situated everywhere, he is avyayam. He does not deteriorate along with everything else that deteriorates. Vishnu Chakravarti notes an anticipated question. He anticipates a question. Nanu kim maya mam agranoti? Does Maya cover me? Kunti Devi is anticipating that Lord Krishna would ask a question. Tatraha agya megakshannam suryam aham na pashyami iti van Mayaya madrishtya achadana tvamapi achannam pashyami iti artha. What she intends to say is, just as an ignorant person does not see the sun which is covered by the cloud, like that, Kunti Devi is expressing this to Lord Krishna. I see you as being covered because my vision of you is covered by Maya. Because you are a Dhokshaja, I am filled with knowledge produced by the senses. And therefore I am ignorant of you. You are not at a loss for not being the object of knowledge for inferior personalities like me. That is indicated by the word avyayam. Nato natya dharo yatha. Just as a dancer, a trained dramatic performer, he sings songs and he exhibits abhinaya, gestures, corresponding to the meanings of what he is singing and corresponding to the rasa that is being experienced. He engages in dancing, claps the hand, and so on. But those who are ignorant, those who are ignorant of Sangita Shastras, the musicals, the scriptures on music, even though they see that here is a dramatic performer engaged in a dramatic performance, they do not actually understand what is being communicated. So even though in a similar manner, even though you are seen by me, you are not recognized by me. Krishna descends to bestow Bhakti Yoga to Paramahamsa Atmaramas amongst the sages whose minds are pure. Because the Lord wants to bestow Prema Bhakti to them. Amalatmanam refers to personalities who are Jivan Muktas. Krishna comes to bestow Bhakti Yoga to such souls. This has already been stated. Atmaramascha Munayo Kurvantya Haitukim Bhaktim. Baladev Vidyabhushana points out that Katham Pashyama Striyaha, women are brought out because women are not eligible to engage in Paramahamsya Dharma. They are not allowed to become sannyasis and so on. Therefore, she is referring to how can we women persevere. Jiva Goswami points out that even though that Kunti Devi wants to express the following, even though you are so great, even though you are like this, you have made us happy. You have also removed our sufferings. Remembering that, she offers obeisances. Krishnaya Vasudevaya. Krishna Chakravarti Thakur points out amongst all the incarnations, this particular incarnation of Krishna is the very best. Yeah, these points are already brought out in Prabhupada's purports. In the vicious assembly, text 24, that time Krishna helped by increasingly supplying clothes for Draupadi and so on. Apunar Bhavadarshana. Jiva Goswami gives another meaning to it. Seeing you is unlike seeing anything else, because nothing else has the sweetness that is there when we see you. It means seeing you is filled with unprecedented sweetness. Bhagadev Bhushan says that Vipadas Santuta Shashwat is a certain type of literary or ornamentation called Anugya. It's an alankara, a certain way of expressing. Please give me this distress because I'm happy in that distress. Chakravarti Thakur says, Loke Sampadeva Vipada. The prosperity in the world, worldly prosperities, are actually calamities. Akinchanana. What is this verse? Brahmashwarya Shuddha Shri Vedamanam Adapuman Naivarhatya Vichatum Vai Tvam Akinchana Gocharam. Akinchana Gocharam. Akinchana Gocharam means that those who are devoid of asuric prosperity. So there is something called asuric prosperity. The Lord can be realized by those who are devoid of asuric prosperities. Text 27 indicates that Krishna is dearest to the Akinchanas. Shantaya indicates that Krishna has no anger even towards devotees who have committed offenses and who are repentant. That should be understood. Okay. 28. Anyatvam. First of all, in deity worship, Pujari can stop if one devotee comes there and welcome him. Any example from scriptures? Any example from scriptures? Nothing comes to your mind right now. And to whom we have to apply this? To whom we have to apply? I think the principle is if one is in the temple, in ISKCON we refer to the entire structure as temple. But strictly speaking, the temple refers to the Garbhagriha, where the Pujari is there. Like for instance, there are rules that you cannot offer obeisances before the deity. That is a rule for the Garbhagriha, not in the Nak Mandir. Amongst Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we have the concept of the Garbhagriha along with the Nak Mandir, the Parikrama pathway, along with the garden surrounding it for growing produces for the deity. All of that is considered temple. So we have to clearly understand that refers to that situation. So if some Vaishnavas come and nobody is in the temple itself, and the pujari is doing puja, then you may have to invoke all these considerations. Or somebody has to receive them, somebody has to deal with them, somebody has to give them charanamrita. There has to be some arrangement. Usually what happens is the puja indicates where there is charanamrita and so on. That is not considered seva parad under that situation. But it is better to organize things in such a manner that these potential seva paradas, because then you may start to engage in a conversation which is unnecessary, which will become a seva parad. So you have to be careful about all this. Where should we apply Apichet Sudrachara Shloka? If you simply examine that shloka very carefully, then you understand who it is meant for. It is not meant for anyone and everyone who engages in the routine activities of Krishna consciousness. It applies to a certain subcategory of those engaged in Krishna consciousness. You can, in Bhakti Shastri Deluxe video recordings, which you can access from ruparaganathvani.com. You can go to that shloka and read out. When I taught it, I had also read out the explanations of Krishna Chakravarti Thakur and Baladev Vidyabhushan and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. You can check that portion. Very interesting explanation they've given. Prabhupada also. Atutnam Prabhu.
When you said Lord is realized by those free from asuric prosperity, can you please tell what is this asuric prosperity?
The prosperity of the asuras is asuric prosperity.
But
that's all. Simple thing.
Anyone who is not a devotee is asura.
Anybody who is a fake devotee is a greater asura. Manyetvam kalam ishanam anadin nidhanam vibhum samam charantatra bhutanam yanmithah kalihi. My Lord, I consider your Lordship to be eternal time, the supreme controller without beginning and end, the all-pervasive one. In distributing your mercy, you are equal to everyone. The dissensions between living beings are due to social intercourse. Nanu devaki putram ma katham evam staushi. I am Devaki's son. How is it that you are glorifying me in this manner? Anticipating this, the Lord speaks this verse. Manyetvam, Kunti Devi speaks this verse to the Lord. Manyetvam kalam, natu Devaki putram. I think you are the destructive force of time, not the son of Devaki. Tatra hetavaha. The reasons are set out in this verse. Ishanam, Niyantara, because you are the controller. Anadi nidhanam, Adyanta shunyam. You are devoid of a beginning and an end. Vibhum, Prabhum, you are the capable controller. Samam yatha bhavati tatha sarvatra charantam. You are moving about equally everywhere. Anu partha sarathe katham mama samyam praha. Then she anticipates a question. How can you say that I deal with everyone equally when I was the charioteer of Artha of Arjuna. Yat yataspatto nimitta bhutanam eva mitaha kalihi kalaha bhavati natu swatas vaivashamya. No, the cause for the kalaha, the quarrel between different personalities, might be instrumentally caused by you, but there is no vaishamya, there is no partiality in you which causes their dissension. Kunti Devi knew that Krishna was neither her nephew nor an ordinary family member of her paternal house. She knew perfectly well that Krishna is a primeval Lord who lives in everyone's heart as a super soul Paramatma. Another name of the Paramatma feature of the Lord is Kala, or eternal time. Eternal time is the witness of all our actions, good and bad, and thus resultant reactions are destined by him. It is no use saying that we do not know why and for what we are suffering. We may forget the misdeed for which we may suffer at this present moment, but we must remember that Paramatma is our constant companion. And therefore, he knows everything, past, present, and future. And because the Paramatma feature of Lord Krishna destines all actions and reactions, he is the supreme controller also. Without his sanction, not a blade of grass can move. The living beings are given as much freedom as they deserve, and misuse of that freedom is the cause of suffering. The devotees of the Lord do not misuse their freedom, and therefore they are the good sons of the Lord. Others who misuse freedom are put into miseries destined by the eternal Kala. The Kala offers the conditioned souls both happiness and miseries. It is all predestined by eternal time. As we have miseries without calling for them, so we have happiness also without asking for it, because it is all predestined by Kala. No one is therefore either an enemy or a friend of the Lord. Everyone is suffering and enjoying the result of his own destiny. This destiny is made by the living beings in course of social intercourse. Everyone here wants to lord it over the material nature, and thus everyone creates his own destiny under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. He is all-pervading, and therefore he can see everyone's activities. And because the Lord has no beginning or end, he is known also as the eternal time, Kala. 29. Naveda kaschit bhagavam stikiršitam, navehamanasya nranam vidambanam, na yasya kaschit daitosti karhiche, dveshyascha yasmin vishamamatir nranam. O Lord, no one can understand your transcendental pastimes, which appear to be human and so are misleading. You have no specific object of favor, nor do you have any object of envy. People only imagine that you are partial. Wait. This is what? 29. Nano nigrahanugraha rupam mayi prasiddham vaishamyam ataha navedeti. Then she anticipates that Lord Krishna might respond. It is very well known that I punish some and I favor some. This is not some form of partiality. Naveda, the current text. Nranam vidambanam anukaranam ihamanasya kurvataha yasmin tvayi vishama matihi anugraha nigraha rupa bhavati. The conception that you are partial because of your reward and punishment, your favor and disfavor, that comes about because you are imitating human beings. This nigraha anugraha, that refers to reward and punishment. A king is supposed to have the capacity to reward and punish. You cannot govern without that. Governance necessarily requires this. I thought somebody had a question.
Yes, Prabhu. Prabhu, in the last purport, we were reading about Kala. So, the personal form of this Kala aspect of Lord, is he called Lord Shiva or something? Mahakal, we say sometimes.
Yes.
So, Lord Shiva is the personal feature of this Kala.
Yes. But originally, it is Lord Sankarshana. Sankarshana is the worshipful deity of Lord Shiva also.
Okay.
The Lord's mercy upon the fallen souls is equally distributed. He has no one as the specific object of hostility. So envy here refers to hostility. The very conception of the personality of Godhead as a human being is misleading. His pastimes, emphasis, appear, end of emphasis, to be exactly like a human being. But actually they are transcendental and without any tinge of material contamination. He is undoubtedly known as partial to his pure devotees, but in fact he is never partial, as much as the sun is never partial to anyone. By utilizing the sun rays, even stones sometimes become valuable, whereas a blind man, what happened? Whereas a blind man cannot see the sun, although there are profuse sun rays before him. Darkness and light are two opposite conceptions, but this does not mean that the sun is partial in distributing its rays. The sun rays are open to everyone, but the capacities of the receptacles differ. Foolish people think that devotion service is flattering the Lord to get special mercy. Actually, the pure devotees who are engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord are not a mercantile community. A mercantile house, business house, a shop, someone that sells a product, renders service to someone in exchange for something valuable. You pay for a product, you get it, or you give the equivalent of money. The pure devotee does not render service unto the Lord for such exchange, and therefore the full mercy of the Lord is open for him. Suffering men, needy men, inquisitive persons, and philosophers make temporary connections with the Lord to serve a particular purpose. When the purpose is served, there is no more relation with the Lord. A suffering man, if he aspires at all, prays to the Lord for his recovery. But as soon as the recovery is over, in most cases, the suffering man no longer cares to keep any connection with the Lord. The mercy of the Lord is open for him, but he is reluctant to receive it. That is the difference between a pure devotee and a mixed devotee. Those who are completely against the service of the Lord are considered to be an abject darkness. Those who ask for the Lord's favor only at the time of necessity are partial recipients of the mercy of the Lord. And those who are sent person engaged in the service of the Lord are full recipients of the mercy of the Lord. Such partiality in receiving the Lord's mercy is relative to the recipient, and it is not due to the partiality of the all-merciful Lord. When the Lord descends to this material world by his all-merciful energy, he plays like a human being, and therefore it appears that the Lord is partial to his devotees only, but that is not a fact. Despite such apparent manifestation of partiality, his mercy is equally distributed. In the battlefield of Kurukshetra, all persons who died in the fight before the presence of the Lord got salvation without the necessary qualifications, because death before the presence of the Lord purifies the passing soul from the effects of all sins. And therefore, the dying man gets a place somewhere in the transcendental abode. Somehow or other, if someone puts himself open in the sun rays, is sure to get the requisite benefit both by heat and by ultraviolet rays. Therefore, the conclusion is that the Lord is never partial. It is wrong for the people in general to think of him as partial. 30. Janma karmacha vishwatman ajasya kartura atmanaha tiryang nrishishu yadatsu tad atyanta vidambana. Of course, it is bewildering, O soul of the universe, that you work though you are inactive, and that you take birth though you are the vital force and the unborn. You yourself descend amongst animals, men, sages, and aquatics. This is very bewildering. Te ajasya janma. The birth of you, the unborn, akarto karma, the activity of the inactive, tiryakshu varahadi rupena, your appearance in the form of varaha and so on amongst the lower species. Nrishu ramadi rupena, your appearance in the form of Rama and so on amongst human beings. Rishishu vamanadi rupena, your appearance in the form of Vamana and so on amongst the rishis, sages. Yadasu matsyadi rupena, your appearance in the form of Matsya avatar amongst the aquatics. Matsya and so on amongst the aquatics. All of these are extremely bewildering. The transcendental pastimes of the Lord are not only bewildering, but also apparently contradictory. In other words, they are all inconceivable to the limited thinking power of the human being. The Lord is all-pervading super soul of all existence, and yet he appears in the form of a boar amongst the animals, in the form of a human being as Rama, Krishna, etc., in the form of a rishi like Narayana, and in the form of an aquatic like a fish. Yet it is said that he is unborn and he has nothing to do. In the Shruti mantra, it is said that the Supreme Brahman has nothing to do. No one is equal to or greater than him. He has manifold energies, and everything is performed by him perfectly by automatic knowledge, strength, and activity. All these statements prove without any question that the Lord's activities, forms, and deeds are all inconceivable to our limited thinking power. And because he is inconceivably powerful, everything is possible in him. Therefore, no one can calculate him exactly. Every action of the Lord is bewildering to the common man. He cannot be understood by the Vedic knowledge, but he can be easily understood by the pure devotees because they are intimately related with him. The devotees therefore know for certain that although he appears amongst the animals, he is not an animal, and that he is also not a man or a rishi or a fish. He is eternally the Supreme Lord in all circumstances. 31. Gopyadate tvaigadachidamatavan yate dashasru kaliranjana samphramaksham vaktram niniya bhavabhavana yastitasya samam vimohyati bhirapi yad bibheti. My dear Krishna, Yashoda took up a rope to bind you when you committed an offense, and your perturbed eyes overflooded with tears which washed the mascara from your eyes. And you were afraid, though fear personified is afraid of you. This sight is bewildering to me. Naravidambanam atyascharyamityaha goviti. Through this verse, Kunti Devi points out that even though he imitates various species, his imitation of the human beings is most astonishing. Gopi Yashoda, Vai Kritagasi, Radhi Bhandas Potanam, Kritavatu, Yavat, Damarajum Adade, Jagraha, Tavat Kshanameva Yate, Dashavastha, Sa Mam Vimohyati. When the cowherd lady Yashoda, when she caught you and tied you with a rope around your waist after you had committed the offense of breaking the yogurt pot. That particular circumstance of that moment, that bewilders me. Kimbhutasya ashrubhi kalilam vyamishram anjanam yayoste cha te samhramena vyakulyakshini yasmim stad vaktram diniyadha kritva Adayishyati iti bhayasya bhavanaya stitasya. The Supreme Lord was looking down with frightened eyes because he was thinking that now my mother is going to beat me. So he had this fear. Yad yatas, yad yatas patto jiravi soyam viveki tasyate dasha. And this was your situation when even fear is frightened of you, and then you are frightened of your mother. 1 minute. Even fear personified is afraid of you, can be taken to mean death, mrityu. That is not by Sridhar Swami. That remark is not by Sridhar Swami. It's just by the editor here. Of course, referring to the Upanishads. Here is another example of the bewilderment created by the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is the supreme in all circumstances, as already explained. Here is a specific example of the Lord's being the supreme and at the same time a plaything in the presence of his pure devotee. The Lord's pure devotee renders service unto the Lord out of unalloyed love only. And while discharging such devotion service, the pure devotee forgets the position of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord also accepts the loving service of his devotees more relishably when the service is rendered spontaneously out of pure affection, without anything of reverential admiration. Generally, the Lord is worshipped by the devotees in a reverential attitude. But the Lord is meticulously pleased when the devotee, out of pure affection and love, considers the Lord to be less important than himself. The Lord's pastimes in the original abode of Goloka Vrindavan are exchanged in that spirit. The friends of Krishna consider him one of them. They do not consider him to be of reverential importance. The parents of the Lord, who are all pure devotees, consider him a child only. The Lord accepts the chastisements of the parents more cheerfully than the prayers of the Vedic hymns. Similarly, he accepts the reproaches of his fiancés more palatably than the Vedic hymns. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita. When Lord Krishna was present in this material world to manifest his eternal pastimes of the transcendental realm of Goloka Vrindavan as an attraction for the people in general, he displayed a unique picture of subordination before his foster mother, Yashoda. The Lord, in his naturally childish, playful activities, used to spoil the stocked butter of Mother Yashoda by breaking the pots and distributing the contents to his friends and playmates, including the celebrated monkeys of Vrindavan, who took advantage of the Lord's munificence. Mother Yashoda saw this, and out of her pure love, she wanted to make a show of punishment for her transcendental child. She took a rope and threatened the Lord that she would tie him up, as is generally done in the ordinary household. Seeing the rope in the hands of Mother Yashoda, the Lord bowed down his head and began to weep just like a child, and tears rolled down his cheeks, washing off the black ointment smeared about his beautiful eyes. This picture of the Lord is adored by Kunti Devi because she is conscious of the Lord's supreme position. He is feared often by fear personified, yet he is afraid of his mother, who wanted to punish him just in an ordinary manner. Krishna was conscious of the exalted position. Kunti was conscious of the exalted position of Krishna, whereas Yashoda was not. Therefore, Yashoda's position was more exalted than Kunti's. Mother Yashoda got the Lord as a child, and the Lord made her forget altogether that her child was the Lord himself. If Mother Yashoda had been conscious of the exalted position of the Lord, she would certainly have hesitated to punish the Lord. But she was made to forget this situation because the Lord wanted to make a complete gesture of childishness before the affectionate Yashoda. This exchange of love between the mother and the son was performed in a natural way, and Kunti, remembering the scene, was bewildered, and she could do nothing but praise the transcendental maternal and filial love. Indirectly, Mother Yashoda is praised for her unique position of love, for she could control even the all-powerful Lord as her beloved child. This is all the marma or the gist of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's comment. 32. केचिदाहुर रजं जातं पुण्यश्लोकस्य कीर्तये यदो प्रियस्यान्ववाये मलयस्येव चन्दनम्. Some say that the unborn has taken birth for the glorification of the great pious king, and others say that you took birth to please King Yadu, one of your dearest devotees. You appeared in his family as sandalwood appears in the Malaya hills. अतएव जगन्मोहनतया दुर्ज्ञेयत्वात् तव जन्मादि बहुधा वर्णयन्ति इत्याह केचिदपि चतुर्भिः. Therefore, because you cannot be understood, because you bewilder the entire world, therefore, your birth and other activities have been described in a variety of ways. This is conveyed in 4 verses beginning with X32. Punya Shlokasya Yudhishthirasya Kirtaye. The pious king that is referred to here is Yudhishthir. Yadoreva Kirtaye iti va. Otherwise, you can refer to Yadu. Malayasya Kirtaye Vamshe va Chandanam Yatha. There's a note here. The note says that Priya indicates that Yudhishthir is being referred to. Yado Priyasya Vavaye. Because the Lord's appearance in this material world is bewildering, there are different opinions about the birth of the unborn. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that he takes his birth in the material world, although he is the Lord of all creations and he is unborn. So there cannot be any denial of the birth of the unborn because he himself establishes the truth. But still, there are different opinions as to why he takes his birth. There are different opinions because the Lord appears for multiple purposes. And great scriptural authorities recognize different purposes in the Lord's descent. And they propagate their realizations, which appear to us to be a variety of opinions. That is also declared in the Bhagavad Gita. He appears by his own internal potency to re-establish the principles of religion and to protect the pious and to annihilate the impious. That is the mission of the appearance of the unborn. Still, it is said that the Lord is there to glorify the pious king Yudhishthir. Lord Shri Krishna certainly wanted to establish the kingdom of the Pandavas for the good of all in the world. When there is a pious king ruling over the world, the people are happy. When the ruler is impious, the people are unhappy. In the age of Kali, in most cases, the rulers are impious and therefore the citizens are also continuously unhappy. But in the case of democracy, the impious citizens themselves elect their representative to rule over them and therefore they cannot blame anyone else for their unhappiness. Maharaj Nala was also celebrated as a great pious king, Punya Shloka, but he had no connection with Lord Krishna. Therefore, here, Punya Shloka means Maharaj Yudhishthir, who was glorified by Lord Krishna. Krishna had also glorified King Yadu, having taken his birth in the family of that king. Thus, Krishna is known as Yadava, Yaduvira, Yadunandana, etc. Yadava, descendant of Yadu, Yaduvira, the hero amongst the descendants of Yadu. Yadunandana, the one who is beloved to the descendants of Yadu, etc. Although the Lord is always independent of such obligation. It's just like the sandalwood that grows in the Malaya hills. Trees can grow anywhere and everywhere. Yet because the sandalwood trees grow mostly in the area of the Malaya hills, the name sandalwood and the Malaya hills. Why is it typed twice? Are interrelated. is only the shadow fire. Therefore, the conclusion is that the Lord is ever unborn like the sun, and yet he appears in this material world in the same way that the sun arises on the eastern horizon. As the sun is never the sun of the eastern horizon, so the Lord is no one's son, but is the father of everything that be. 43. Apare vasudevasya devakyam yachitobhyagat ajastvam asya kshemaya vadhaya cha suradvusham. Others say that since both Vasudeva and Devaki prayed for you, you have taken your birth as their son. Undoubtedly, you are unborn, yet you took your birth for their welfare and to kill those who are envious of the demigods. There is difference in translation in Veda base and yours. Mine is Veda base. Mine is offline Veda base. Yours must be online Veda base. Forgive them. In the past also, there's so much of pathantaras, through manuscripts. So many variant readings you will find. You hardly come across two manuscripts having the same reading. And life went on. 33. तथा वसुदेवस्य भार्यायां देवक्याम् अजयेव त्वम् अभ्यगात् पुत्रत्वम् विशेषः प्रथमपुरुषस्त्वार्षः अर्भत्वम् इति पाठः सुगमः. So in the place of Ajastvam, where is Ajastvam? Ajastvam. In the place of Ajastvam, Arbhatvam sometimes appears in the manuscript. But the meaning is the same. That would be a better reading, Sridhar Swami says. Tabhyam eva purvam sutapah prishni rupabhyam yachitarsam. Okay. Both Vasudeva and Devaki prayed for you in the past in the forms of Sutapa and Prishni. Asya Jagata Kshemaya. It is also said that Vasudeva and Devaki in their previous birth, the Sutapa and Prishni underwent a severe type of penance to get the Lord as their son. And as a result of such austerities, the Lord appeared as their son. It is already declared in the Bhagavad Gita that the Lord appears for the welfare of all people of the world and to vanquish the asuras or the materialistic atheists. 34. Bharavatarana ye bhuvanav ivo dadhau sidantya bhuri bharena jato hyatma bhuvarthitaha. Others say that the world being overburdened like a boat at sea was much aggrieved, and that Brahma, who is your son, prayed for you, and so have appeared in order to diminish the trouble. And so you have appeared in order to diminish the trouble. Adbhuveti Brahma Prarthanasya Pradhanya Vivakshaya. So Brahma had offered prayer for you to come and reduce the burden of the world. So some think that this is the primary reason for your appearance in this world. Brahma, or the first living being born just after the creation, is the direct son of Narayana. Notice that expression, direct son. Prabhupada will explain it now. Narayana as Bodhagashai Vishnu, first of all entered the material universe. Without spiritual contact, matter cannot create. This principle was followed from the very beginning of the creation. The Supreme Spirit entered the universe, and the first living being, Brahma, was born on the lotus flower, grown out of the transcendental abdomen of Vishnu. Vishnu is therefore known as Padmanabha. Brahma is known as Atmabhu. This expression, Atmabhuva. The source of this word Atmabhuva is Atmabhu, because he was begotten directly from the father without any contact of mother Lakshmi ji. Lakshmi ji was present near Narayan, engaged in the service of the Lord, and still without contact with Lakshmi ji, Narayana begot Brahma. That is the omnipotency of the Lord. One who foolishly considers Narayana like other living beings should take a lesson from this. Narayana is not an ordinary living being. He is a personality of Godhead himself, and he has all the potencies of all the senses in all parts of his transcendental body. An ordinary living being begets a child by sexual intercourse, and he has no means of begetting a child other than the one designed for him. But Narayana, being omnipotent, is not bound to any condition of energy. He is complete and independent to do anything and everything by his various potencies very easily and perfectly. Brahma is therefore directly the son of the father and was not put into the womb of a mother. Therefore, he is known as Atmabhu. He is directly the son of Lord Narayana. Lord Narayana is commonly referred to as Atman, the ultimate soul of all the souls. This Brahma is in charge of further creations in the universe, secondarily reflected by the potency of the omnipotent. Within the halo of the universe, there is a transcendental planet known as Shvetadvipa, which is the abode of the Kshirodakashai Vishnu, the Paramatma feature of the Supreme Lord. Whenever there is trouble in the universe that cannot be solved by the administrative demigods, they approach Brahmaji for a solution. And if it is not to be solved even by Brahmaji, then Brahmaji consults and prays to the Kshirodakashai Vishnu for an incarnation and solution to the problem. Such a problem arose when Kamsa and others were ruling over the earth, and the earth became too much overburdened by the misdeeds of the Asuras. Brahmaji, along with other demigods, prayed at the shore of the Kshirodaka ocean, and they were advised of the descent of Krishna as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. So some people say that the Lord appeared because of the prayers of Brahmaji. There is, if the people in Kali Yuga desire to have the Lord as their son, is it possible? Yes, anybody can surrender to Krishna's lotus feet, engage in pure devotion service to him, and they can attain the Lord as their son at any time, at any place, under any circumstance. 35. Bhavesmin Tushyamananam avidya kamakarmabhihi Shravanas Maranarhani Harishyan iti kechana. And yet others say that you appeared in order to renovate the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshipping, and so on, in order that the conditioned soul suffering from physical pangs might take advantage and gain liberation. Now here, notice this, avidya kama karma bhihi tushyamana asmin bhavesh. Those who are suffering in this material creation experience such suffering because of avidya, nescience, ignorance, kama, desire, vasana, and karma, by the execution of fruitive work. In Bhakti-vaibhava Sindhu also we come across klesha to be of 3 types. Avidya, tadbija, and then papa. Ignorance, avidya, vasana, papa. And then you get klesha. Here also we see avidya, kama, karma. Activities here refer to sinful activities, offensive activities, because pious activities are generally either mixed with sinful activities, or generally one engages in sinful activities even after engaging in pious activities. This we will study in the 6th canto. Yes.
Prabhu, when it is told by Lord himself in Gita why he comes, still why like other
What?
philosophers or saints are giving their opinions why he is coming when it is already stated?
No, Krishna says one thing in Bhagavad Gita, but he also teaches through the other scriptures, other purposes for which he comes. And is also very direct. Directly you see Brahma offers prayers and Krishna appears. Everyone can see. So that is another cause. Krishna Sutapa, they ask Krishna to become their son and he becomes a son. So there are different
It's like
reasons.
it's like details are given here, and in Gita it's like some principle, something like this.
No, there could be multiple reasons. Krishna says that he appears when there is dharmasya glani and when there is adharmasya uttham, when there is an uprise of adharma and there is a disturbance to dharma. But he doesn't say that is the only time he appears or that is the only purpose for which he appears. Matantaram, another opinion. Paramananda Swarupa Ajnanam Avidya. Avidya refers to ignorance of the nature of supreme bliss. Tataha dehadhyabhimanat kamaha. And because of that, there is identification with one's body and so on. And because of that, there is kama, there is desire. Tataha karmani. And because of that, one engages in various fruitive activities, activities to enjoy in this world or to prevent suffering in this world. Aiklushyamana tandivrittaye shravanadhyarhani karmani karishyan. So they're suffering in this way, but to eradicate their sufferings, the Supreme Lord performs activities which are fit to be heard and so on. So this is another reason why the Lord descends. In the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the Lord asserts that he appears in every millennium just to re-establish the way of religion. The way of religion is made by the Supreme Lord. No one can manufacture a new path of religion as is the fashion for certain ambitious persons. The factual way of religion is to accept the Lord as the supreme authority and thus render service unto him in spontaneous love. A living being cannot help but render service because he is constitutionally made for that purpose. The only function of the living being is to render service to the Lord. The Lord is great and living beings are subordinate to him. Therefore, the duty of the living being is just to serve him only. Unfortunately, the illusioned living beings, out of misunderstanding only, become servants of the senses by material desire. This desire is called avidya or nescience. And out of such illegitimate desire, notice that expression, illegitimate desire, the living being makes different plans for material enjoyment centered about the perverted sex life. He therefore becomes entangled in the chain of birth and death by transmigrating into different bodies on different planets under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Vidya, Kama, Karma. Unless, therefore, one is beyond the boundary of this nescience, one cannot get free from the threefold miseries of material life. That is the law of nature. The Lord, however, out of his causeless mercy, because he is more merciful to the suffering living beings than they can expect, appears before them and renovates the principles of devotion service, comprised of hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping, praying, cooperating, and surrendering unto him. Ravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, cooperating. No. Cooperating must be Dasyam and Sakyam together. Atmani Vedanam, surrendering unto him. Adoption of all the above mentioned items or any one of them can help a conditioned soul get out of the tangle of nations and thus become liberated from all material sufferings created by the living being, illusioned by the external energy. This particular type of mercy is bestowed upon the living being by the Lord in the form of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Krishna also appears as Krishna himself in order to become the subject matter for Shravanam, Kirtanam, and so on. Because here means you have to hear about someone. Glorify, Kirtanam means you have to glorify someone. So for that, the Lord appears and performs various activities which we can hear, which we can glorify, which we can remember, and so on. And that very process is demonstrated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna appears as a subject matter, Vishaya, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears as the Ashraya, as the devotee who accepts Krishna as that subject matter. Okay, so this portion is over. Let me now take up the Acharya's commentaries now from 28. Your very good nature is simply beyond logical understanding. That is pointed out in 4 verses beginning with text 28. Kala, Kalam here refers to the inner ruler, the Supreme Lord. And that is because the very word Kala means controller. Ishan, Ishanam, Bahishya Sarva Niyantaram. And Ishanam refers to one who controls from outside. So that is one who controls from inside. That is one who controls from outside. And Krishna himself, through different forms, does that. Yat yatra yeshu bhaveshu bhutanam itah kalaru bhavati teshu samam charantam. And while all the living beings, they develop their quarrels, the Supreme Lord himself moves about them, but equally. First of all, he is actually equal. But between his devotees and those who dislike him, he behaves with them by bestowing favor and by punishing. Apart from that, he also engages in various pastimes while descending as Leelavataras. And he becomes completely absorbed in this. Baladev has given another explanation. Yadi asmins yet yasmins tvai bhutana mitah kalihi. The living creatures in this world, they quarrel about you. Baddho mukto veshwaraha. Adye asamartha. Samarthya. Antye pravritya bhava. One group says that the Lord is bound, Another group says the Lord is liberated. The ones who say that the Lord is bound will have to conclude that the Supreme God is incapable. The other group says because he is liberated, then he would have nothing to do in this world. Iti vyarthastat svikara. Atha samo vishamo veshvara. Another dispute. The Supreme God, is he equal to everyone? Is he impartial or is he partial? He cannot be the first. He cannot be impartial. Because we see that he rewards some, he punishes someone else. And he cannot be the second because the scriptures declare that he is actually equal to all. So in that way, there is a dispute. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur has given a fine explanation here. This is, which text is this? 30. तदपि तव साम्य वैषम्य कर्तृत्व अकर्तृत्व जन्मवत्व अजत्वादिषु सिद्धान्तान् निर्विद्य लीलैव आस्वादनीया इत्याह जन्मेति द्वाभ्याम्. The current text and the next text, they point out that one should simply relish the Lord's pastimes by detaching oneself from philosophical analysis about you, whether you are impartial, partial, whether you are active, inactive, whether you take birth, whether you don't take birth, and so on. Ajasya janma akartuh karma tatravi tiryagadishu tacha tava sarvotkristasya ishwarasya atyanta vidambana. The birth of the unborn, the activity of the inactive, and especially that all of this is happening amongst the lower species and so on. Your birth, your activity. This is extreme imitation on the part of the Supreme God, who is the greatest of all. Because he accepts himself to be on the same platform as those particular persons amongst whom he is taking birth. In other words, he accepts himself as being sufficiently inferior enough to deal with them as if he is one amongst them. Tatahi varahe janmani granena varahe janmani. For instance, when he appears in the Varaha appearance, Varaha incarnation, Granena Prithivya Padavim Vijigran Ityadina. He was searching out for the position of Prithvi through his smell, just like a hog would do. Ityadina Sarvagyatvepi Ishwaratvepi Vastava Shukra Eva Abhur. So even though he knows everything, even though he is a supreme controller, still he behaved just like a real Shukara, like a hog. Jammavalokya Jahasa Chaho Vanagocharo Mrita. And by seeing which Hiranyaksha, he ridiculed him. Oh, here is an aquatic who has come to die. Ityevana tatvagyas tvam karmadhinam jivam eva manyanta iti bhavaha. But those who are tatvagyas, those who know the truth, they do not accept you as jiva who is under the control of his karma. That is implied here. Atra ajatva akartritva yoreva satyatve janma karma lakshana yor lila yor mithyatvam tathatve cha tasya udevadya atmarama gana chitta karshanasya asangatihi janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvata iti bhagavaduktescha janma karmana satyatve ajatva akartritva yor asangatir iti. So on one hand, if you say that the supreme unborn inactive one is true, that means him not taking birth is true, him not being active is true, then you will have to say that his pastimes, which are characterized by birth and activities, are false. And if you were to say that his pastimes are false, then that would be inappropriate where his birth and activities attracting Shukadeva and other Atmaramas, the minds of Shukadeva and other Atmaramas. On the other hand, we have a statement of the Supreme Lord, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvataha yaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjana. So then if you accept that his birth and activities are true, then you will have to say that his not taking birth and him not engaging in activities would not match. Tasma achintya ananta shakti mataha bhagavataha ko veda tattvam. So who can understand the truth about Bhagavan, who is filled with inconceivable, unlimited potencies? He appears among sages in the form of Vyasa and so on. Dhirapi yad vibheti indicates that Kunti Devi has Aishwarya Jnana. There are different types of knowledge. Sri Baladev Vidya explains in Siddhanta Ratna that the residents of Krishna's Gokula pastimes, they also know about the Lord's supremacy, but they don't experience any effect of that knowledge. So their hearts don't tremble. They don't get frightened. Like when Arjuna realized that Krishna is Supreme Lord, he became very much frightened. So they don't experience the effect of that knowledge. So that he refers to as Madhurya Jnana. And when one has knowledge of Krishna's supremacy and experiences the effect of that knowledge, then he refers to that kind of knowledge as Aishwarya Jnana. It is not that the residents of Gokula have not seen Krishna's extraordinary activities. They have seen demigods come from the sky. The gopis also know that Krishna is a super soul. Krishna's mother and father know in that superficial sense. And that superficial sense is created by Yogamaya. Always makes them feel that it is superficial, it is insignificant. It is discussed by Vishwanath Chakravarti in Raghavarma Chandrika, and also by Sri Baladev Vidya Bhushan in Siddhanta Ratna. So Kunti Devi had Aishwarya Jnana towards the Lord. Swamatamaha. Kunti Devi's own opinion is stated in text 35. Avidya Jnanam tatah kama tatah karmani tai klishyamananam samsarikanam api prema bhakti siddhyartameva karmani karishyan klesha nivrittis tu anushangi. The Supreme Lord engages in activities so that they could develop prema bhakti. Who could develop prema bhakti? The samsarikas, those engaged in material existence and who are suffering because of the activities which are caused by their desires, which are caused by ignorance. Actually, the removal of distress is incidental. Uttara shloke padambuja darshanasya shravanadi phalattvokte, because the next shloka will talk about the result of Shravanam and so on as seeing the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Tad darshanam tu premalabhyameva, because seeing the lotus feet of the Lord is only possible by attainment of prema bhakti. Kamaha refers to bhogecha, the desire to enjoy. The Lord engages in various pastimes which brings about pure devotional service in the form of hearing, meditation, and so on. So some admit that this is the reason. All right, so I'm done with this. We'll stop with that. Vanshakalpatarubhyasya kripasinduਭ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।